Okay, here we go. The last speaker of this session, second session, and here we have Mr. Stephen Picanza. So, going to start the discussion about, and he's going to present about brand innovation and social media transformations. So, Stephen Picanza is a brand strategist, educator, and a strategic advisor with a core purpose centered around connecting people, products, and organizations with their core audience. Over the past 15 years, which have been seen Stephen go from jigging musician to agency owner to startup founder to educator. Stephen has worked with a multitude of amazing brands and organizations, often leading them through the rough waters of digital transformations and rebranding initiatives. Currently, he is a co-host on both the Creative Hustler podcast and Coffee Talk with OpenAI Global. Stephen, being passionate about all things creative, is also an executive board member of the San Diego Entertainment and Arts Guild, a non-profit organization he helped found in 2009. With very much awaited eagerness, let's call him to give a brief on brand innovation and social media transformation. So, about brand innovation and social media transformation, in the era of Facebook and YouTube, brand innovation has become a challenge when it comes to the reachability of social media audience. To know more, we have Mr. Stephen Picanza, Chief Brand Strategist, Branding and Marketing Educator of Latin & Co., to give his opinion on brand innovation and social media transformation. Mr. Stephen Picanza, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, guys. All right. Well, I am stoked to be here. I'm stoked that I'm able to share my experience and I'm able to share my expertise in the subject. So currently, it's about 1:15 p.m. on today, Wednesday, the 11th of July. And I want to thank everyone for at Global Digital Marketing Summit allowing me the opportunity to be here and to share my story. But before I move forward and before I just want to make sure that everything is still working on Adobe Connect. So if I could just have a bunch of people saying, I hear you, Stephen, I see you, you look good, that would be amazing. Just put it in the chat. Just say what's up to me, just so I know that you guys are paying attention. I would really, really appreciate that. Awesome, awesome, great. So looking at, before we dive in and before we really look at what we're talking about here with social media transformation through brand innovation, let's just set some house rules. And I like to do this when I talk because, you know, everyone has a different style, and my style is very engaging and my style is very animated. So I like to say, hey guys, learning happens when distractions are limited. So I know that we live in a digital first world where we are constantly on our mobile and on Skype and on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And I'm not saying you need to get out of all of that or close that down. I'm just saying that when you're able to pay attention and when those distractions are limited, you're really going to absorb all this information. The second thing I want to say is engage with me, tweet me at Picanza on Twitter. That is my last name. I love talking to, building new relationships, talking about branding, talking about social, and honestly playing this role of matchmaker. A lot of what I do is helping people with a problem or a challenge find a solution. And if I don't know the answer, because I am by no way an guru or a maven or any other kind of buzzword you want to enter, I will tell you this though, I got a guy. And the reason why I say I got a guy is, and this is going to hopefully tie a lot of things together, but for many, many years, I did improv comedy. And I did improv theater, essentially, where my character was a groomsman in a wedding. And as part of the groomsman, I wore a tuxedo, and inside my tuxedo jacket, I would always have over here, whether it was watches and necklaces, it was a joke, but I always said, you know, I got what you need. I got this over here, I got this over here, how can I help you? That same kind of mentality I bring with me to what I do now, which is brand consulting, which is educating, and which is playing this matchmaker role. So if what I'm trying to say here is, if you got a question and I don't know the answer to it, I got somebody who probably has the answer to that specific question. So what are we really talking about here? We're talking about innovation, and we're talking about this idea that a lot of brands are struggling with this concept. And I don't really care how big of a brand you are, how small of a brand you are. Size doesn't matter here, and there is no one size fits all when it comes to innovation. When you guys think of innovation, what do you think about? Because I'll tell you, in my opinion, so many people think of innovation as this concept of a bunch of board members in suits sitting around a board table, scratching their heads saying, you know what? I think we need to be innovative. And then it ends there, and it doesn't continue. It doesn't fold down the funnel in a way. But it's not their fault. It's not their fault. They're thinking the right thing. They're thinking, yes, we need to be innovative, but the problem is they don't know how to implement innovation. And when you can't implement innovation from the very first conversation when you're talking about your brand, then you're never going to be able to implement innovation. So think about this for a second, guys. Let's just think about a couple brands that were innovative in their time, but now are not innovative or not even around anymore. So let's think about this one. How about Kodak? Kodak was on top of the world. Everybody had a Kodak camera. Everybody bought Kodak film. But then what happened? Digital cameras happened and cell phones happened. And Kodak was really faced with this internal struggle of, well, we've always done what we've always done, so we're always going to get what we've always got. And they never truly really grasped this idea of their digital transformation. And now where's Kodak? How about Blockbuster? Blockbuster, again, there was a Blockbuster in every corner here in the States. Friday nights were the time to go to Blockbuster and pick out your movie. And I remember as a kid going through the aisles. And I remember the day I found out that Blockbuster was put in alphabetical order. It blew my mind. And I loved it so much. I loved the idea of going there and being able to pick up a story off the shelf and then go home with it. But Blockbuster screwed up big time. Because as we became so much more digitally focused and we started consuming content on our second and third screens, Blockbuster thought, well, the movie business, how we see it, is never going to change. And they were disrupted big time. They were disrupted by Netflix. And Netflix came around and threw their business model away. And said, no, we're going to make our consumers, who are your consumers, Blockbuster, just so we're all aware, we're going to make them, no, we're not going to make them. We're going to give them the opportunity to consume content on their own terms and purchase that content on their own terms. They were truly innovative. Last example, and this is really big nowadays here in the States, Toys R Us. Toys R Us has shut almost all of their locations, if not all of their locations. Hundreds of thousands of square retail space now goes without a tenant, without Toys R Us. Why? Well, some say that they didn't have a digital transformation of their own, and I agree. I agree that Amazon came and flipped their business model around. And I also agree that Toys R Us was so slow to innovate that when innovation came knocking on their door, when Toys R Us, when Toys R Us and Amazon were in the early stage of courting each other, Toys R Us didn't allow themselves to be innovative. They stuck to what they always did, and now they are unfortunately no longer around. But again, guys, it's not their fault. It really isn't, because I even struggle with it at times. That's my struggle face. And why do I struggle with it? There's a million different reasons why I struggle with it. Number one, it's difficult, right? Being innovative and having a positive mentality forward takes a lot of energy. And it takes a lot of energy to continue that innovation, not just have one innovative thought or try to instill one positive, innovative initiative. But to be consistent with it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. And it takes a lot of heart. And it's not for the faint of heart. Let's just be real. Because it takes dedication, It takes commitment, and it takes extreme discipline to really, really set forth and be that innovative brand that everybody wants to be, because it trickles down. And we're going to talk later about how it affects your marketing. But we can't get to the marketing without talking about brand. And I'm a brand guy first. Because as a brand strategist, it is my job, guys, to help frustrated CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs, a lot like yourself, outposition and outbrand the competition. Because what does that do? What does that do in the end? When you can outposition and outbrand your competition, you're making your marketing more effective and more efficient. And when you can tie all those things together, we're going to equal a higher ROI, and we're going to equal a lot more brand love. And that's what I'm about, is ensuring that your brand is always, always loved. But also as an educator, and I teach at Drexel University in Philadelphia on branding and marketing theory. I also teach at the European Institute of Design in Milan on branding. As an educator, guys, my purpose, which is very similar to my purpose as a brand consultant, but is to teach, whether it's entrepreneurs or brands or just the future leaders, to keep moving. No matter what, don't stop pressing and progressing forward. Because when we do that, we get stale, we get complacent, and we start to lose our innovative nature. And I'm all about progress to keep innovation flowing. I see there is some chats coming, and I'm going to get to you guys' chats in a little bit. Jennifer, hi Jennifer, and Monica. Why is brand building sense to advertising? What a great question. We're going to get to that in a little bit, Monica. And Kimberly, quickest ways to build brand online apart from Facebook, Twitter. We're going to get to that as well. So I'm just going to move this over to the side a little bit so that I can continue seeing my screen. But so branding is about the same, guys. It's about that forward strategic movement forward. And it's about consistency and being constant. That's the branding mantra, because nothing is bigger of a brand killer than inconsistencies. And we were talking about advertising. How can you get your advertising to shine? Be consistent with your branding. Make sure you understand who your audience is and what they're about, their wants and needs. Make sure you really spend a day in their shoes and become empathetic to them. Because I'm going to show you why your customers matter so much as I show you this innovation loop. But, I mean, true story though. I'm not going to say I struggled with this. I already said Steven struggled earlier. But brand innovation and social media transformation cannot be taught in a 30-minute presentation. In fact, it shouldn't be taught at all. It needs to be experienced. It needs to be put into play on the field. I don't care how big or how small your brand is, whether you're a brand of 1,000 or a brand of 1. You owe it to your customers to continue to live a brand first mentality, because that's going to allow your social media and your advertising to do the work that they do, which is promote your brand. So many people think that they want to go to marketing. They want marketing first because, let's just face it, the marketing is where everyone feels that they need to spend most of their time. And marketing is so important. It is, absolutely. But what's more important is to get to that marketing is to have a runway, have that concrete foundation. And I say this all the time. Skyscrapers are not built in the sand, and neither is your brand. Your brand needs to be built on concrete to allow for effective and efficient marketing. So in looking at this idea of innovation, brand innovation, and social media transformation, I say it shouldn't be taught at all, because it has to be realized and course corrected and molded into an ecosystem. And the ecosystem I'm showing you right here is this idea of, the management is nurturing the organization, right? The management nurtures the employees, and the employees are serving the customers. And the customers are the ones attracting the investors. And the customers are the ones who are bringing in the money. And that's who supports the management. And so when we're able to create this innovation ecosystem, you could see how important it is to ensure that you are at all time understanding the lane that your brand plays in and understanding how important it is for your brand to stay in that lane and not be jaded by shiny, bright new objects. It happens to all of us. Marketing these days, unfortunately, really is a bunch of shiny, bright new objects. So at the core of all of this, guys, at the core is innovation. That's what creates this ecosystem. Because if you're not creating a brand ecosystem from the get-go, you're creating a brand ecosystem. And a brand ecosystem is a brand that's in silos. A brand ecosystem is a brand where the management and the employees and the customers and the shareholders are not on the same page. Everyone has their own ideology on how things should be run. A brand ecosystem doesn't allow you to be innovative. It just wants you to do the same thing it's always done, because you're going to get results that you can count on, as opposed to new and bolder results. So the truth is, and I'm just going to look down, Robert, great question. How do you increase brand recognition? Robert, so many great questions. Oh my God. Can we build brand only with influencer marketing? Jamie, influencer marketing is great, but again, it's marketing. Building a brand takes a lot more than just the marketing. That's the gasoline that we're throwing on top of the brand. Could you build a brand only with influencer marketing? I think you can make a good splash, but I don't think you're building a true brand in that sense. You're kind of building a one-trick pony or a fly-by-night idea. So the truth is, what is this truth? To be truly innovative with your day-to-day marketing, like social media, you need to have a runway to launch. You need to have this idea called a strategy in place. And the strategy is what is going to allow, the strategy you put together, your brand strategy is going to dictate your marketing strategy, and it's going to allow you to be effective with your influencer marketing, because now you know the right influencers to go after, what you should be spending on influencer marketing. Maybe it doesn't pay to just have one huge A-list celebrity influencer, but maybe you want to get a lot of middle ground influencers. And that's going to give you this idea of swarming, where we're hitting the market from many different angles. And when I'm building brands, we're helping you to swarm. We want this idea of swarming. We don't just want to approach it very singular. We want to be hitting the strategy in all different angles. Because it's very apparent that the best brands out there are not jumping headfirst into a pool full of some random liquid or a cold audience. They're not. They are understanding first and foremost who their audience is. They're understanding first and foremost how to attract their tribe. They understand that their place in the ocean. And it's hard, guys. It's hard to do that. Look at the questions that's being asked. It's a lot easier to ask, well, what's the best way to market with influencers? Or what's the best way to launch my brand on social media? That's the easy stuff in a way. The hard stuff is thinking about your brand purpose and thinking about how can I future-proof my brand so that I can circumvent any kind of economic or any kind of market trends that end up putting a wrench into my brand strategy. That's what the best brands are answering. That's what I want you guys to answer. And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes some real tough questions and even more serious answers. The best brands, they test, they iterate, they change, they evolve, and they understand this idea that first idea that they put out there is just a starting point. They leverage this idea of agile strategy and design thinking to look at all possible angles. When I'm working with brands, I leverage design thinking, and I leverage these agile strategies to ensure that we're basing our assumptions and we're basing our research on actual data that matters, as opposed to data that doesn't matter. And at all times, they make certain that they're always staying strategic. Again, shiny, bright new objects are going to come. They come every day. Every day we're getting bombarded by a new algorithm update, a new social network, a new app, a new way of doing things. And a lot of brands, and we're all guilty of this. I'm even guilty of this. A lot of brands, they abandon their course because they heard that the light at the end of this tunnel is brighter. But then they get on this course and they hear about this light over here, so they go on a different course, so on and so forth. And eventually they lose their way. They lose their strategic nature. Prince, you have a great question. What are the challenges in brand innovation? I think the biggest challenge in brand innovation is not sticking to brand innovation. It's just talking about being innovative. There's this great quote. Marcus Aurelius, he was a Roman emperor and a philosopher 2,000 years ago in Rome. He was the last of the good emperors. And he has a quote that says, "Do not talk about being a good man, just be a good man." So I've taken that quote, I've really internalized it, and I'm saying now, in the sense of branding, don't talk about being an innovative brand. Just be an innovative brand. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Same thing with this term authenticity. Authenticity is a term that we've heard, it was the buzzword of 2012. Then it made its way back in 2015, and I'm sure it's going to come back again, in a couple of years. Well, stop talking about being innovative. Stop talking about this idea of, well, we are authentic, and this is why we're authentic, and showing all these reasons why, all these features of your authenticity. Just be an authentic brand. Let your actions, again, serve louder than your words, because that is you staying true to your core values. It is you and your brand staying true to your purpose, and it's you staying true to your strategy. The best brands take the time to nurture their audience. I'm sure we all heard about that term, nurturing your tribe or building your tribe. It's so important. I'm going to continue to harp on it. We all have a tribe to build, and whether your tribe is of 1,000,000 or 1,000, it's understanding them, their wants, their needs, and how you can position yourself to be the solution to their problem. That takes innovative thinking. That takes thinking a little differently to say, listen, this brand is not about us. It's not about me. You might be, the brand of one, and you started this brand. The brand is very much a living, breathing organism that needs to adapt to market changes and customer changes, because your brand is nothing that is tangible. It is the idea that is in your customer's mind. It is that gut feeling that your customers have about your product or service, or about your name. That is your brand. So they take the time to nurture their audience, ask them questions, find out about them. It's going to allow you to, obviously build your brand to their specificities, but also allow you to market to them better. Because if the majority of your audience is on Facebook, why are you advertising to them or talking to them on Twitter? Talk to them where they live. If they're on Facebook, be on Facebook. If your brand isn't on social media, well, then you need to find out where your brand is. Maybe they're in print ads. Maybe you serve a very much an older demographic. Well, then reach your audience on their terms, because they're going to reward you when you do so. And what are they going to reward you in? Well, they're going to continue to buy your products. They're going to serve as a sounding board for your marketing by telling their friends and their family and their circle of influence about your brand, which is the best marketing as a brander. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to build a brand that connects with an audience so much that advertising and marketing really becomes that second step, because our audience and our tribe is preaching the good name of our brand. The best brands position themselves properly. And this is something I see a lot, whether I'm talking with my students or I'm talking this within my consultancy, guys. A lot of people get confused between value proposition and positioning. And let me demystify it for you guys for a second. The value proposition is your whole brand positioning. It is who you serve and the problem you are solving. Now, underneath that value proposition, you may have a couple different products or a couple different services. That's when we're going to look to differentiate positioning, because we cannot be everything to everyone. And it was with that ideology that we should say, hey, this one service is great for this specific audience group, while this other service that I have is great for that audience group. How can we now start to leverage messaging and creative to market those two audience groups and get them down our funnel? So now we're looking at how brand is impacting social media. We can't just have a one-size-fits-all message or a one-size-fits-all piece of creative. We need to be smarter. We need to be making smarter decisions in our marketing, and those smarter answers of the questions we are asking are going to come from the work we do with ensuring our brand is innovative, positioned correctly, and that we have a proactive strategy. So when we're able to figure out our position, we know who our competitors are. We know our USP, right? We know that unique selling prop. We know the market gaps. We know where our consumers are living. We know, again, that role that we play that solves the problem. And it's so important. And it's not one thing that you create that positioning and then you move on and never look at it again. But we're always coming back to it. We're always coming back to our brand strategy. We're always coming back to this idea that our brand needs to be innovative. Innovate or die. It's a big quote for a reason. We always have to be thinking like this. And that's what the best brands are doing. So in looking at it, they're not satisfied with this idea of the status quo or being good enough. Like I keep saying, they're driven by innovation, culture, and vision. And when combined, they're able to create a brand that lives in the hearts and mind of their core audience forever. And forever, even if forever is in the moment. So just take a moment and just think about your brand and think about putting all these all these initiatives forward with your brand. For a moment, think about ways that you can be a better brander for your own organization. I'm sure you're seeing that there are gaps, and I'm sure you're seeing that there are ways that you can talk to your customers better or nurture them whether you're looking at your brand strategy from a top-down perspective, like a hierarchy, or you're looking at it linear, you can very easily start to see some of those holes when you start asking yourself better brand questions. And I just want to throw it out there. My contact information is on the bottom. My contact information is going to be at the end of this presentation. I want you to call me, and I want you to email me, and I want you to ask me questions about your brand, because I want to help you. I want to help you make better branding and marketing decisions. And I'm going to approach this very philosophically, very data-driven, but I'm also going to approach this in a way that takes into account the tough realization that the brand isn't about you. It's about those customers that you cherish and covet so much, because I do. So really this idea of truth, and we're going to, what this really all means is that to achieve innovation, let's start at the end and let's work backwards. So in starting at the end and we're working backwards, where do we start? Let's look at it this way. What is it that you want to be doing? You want to be creating value, and value could be very subjective. Value could be monetary. Value could just be true value. But let's look at it from a CEO's perspective. How about this? So when you ask a CEO, what keeps him or up at night? The answer is usually something centered around value. Shareholder value, or the monetary figures that are coming in, which equates to value, but something around there. That's what keeps them up at night. And what drives this idea of shareholder value, or just value in general? Growth, progress, movement. If we're not growing, how can our value be growing? If we are, as an organization, are not progressing or moving forward, does our value move forward? And what drives growth anyway? What drives progress and movement? You guessed it, innovation. And how do you achieve a non-stop engine of innovation? You do that through an amazing company culture. And this right here is the $1 million word, is that culture. So it takes a culture of innovation to turn innovation into a core competency so that successful new business or new products or even services are more than a matter of chance. They're a matter of fact. So what drives culture? I mean, if we're going to keep going, without a bold vision, there is no rallying point for culture. There is no true call to action to make your marketing matter. But Stephen, I'm a company of one. Why does this matter to me? It matters more to a company of one sometimes than a company of 1,000. Because when you are a company of one, you're responsible for all of this. You are the culture. What you say goes. And you are the chief innovation officer. And hell, you're responsible for growth. And are you also the one providing the value? Well, if one of these chains on the fence, one of these links on the fence or on the chain are broken, well, then your ecosystem is broken. And if your ecosystem is broken, well, then how can you market effectively without spending a lot of money and throwing a lot of things against the wall, hoping for something good? You're not able to. So what all this really means is that if you want to create a transformative social media experience, you must have a brand who lives its purpose. You must have a brand who believes what it says and says what it believes. You must have a brand that leads by example. And you must have a brand that is focused on providing value, on continuously growing, on being innovative, and that is based on internal culture. So if you are a brand of one, we spoke about how this whole thing relates to you. But if you're a brand of 3 or 4 or 5, let's just say, that's also very difficult because you're wearing a lot of different hats. Maybe you're not wearing as many hats as the brand of 1, but the brand of 5 is still, you are responsible for being the chief culture officer and the chief innovation officer. You're also in charge of making sure that the brand is living its purpose every day. So how do you live your brand purpose and make the most out of your marketing? Again, let those actions speak a lot louder than your words. Start with your employees and your stakeholders. If you are a brand of 10 and everyone in the brand is really, really involved and committed, bring somebody outside in and ask those hard questions. Because by setting that concrete foundation, you're able to really look top down and see how you want to scale your brand. So living your brand purpose to make the most out of your marketing, that's the first impression of your brand. Great example. I was walking into a restaurant. There was a big chain. I care not to say what it was. Let's just call it a Hard Rock. I was walking in with my wife a couple weeks ago, and we had parked in the parking lot. And we were walking inside of the restaurant, and an employee who we could tell just got off work. And I know, I used to work in the restaurant industry for many, many years. It's exhausting. You're dealing with clients. You're dealing with customers. You're dealing with, and especially customers in the restaurant business, they are sometimes the most egotistical. But this employee walked past us and smiled, greeted us like we were inside the restaurant, said hello, and as we left, said, "Enjoy your meal." And I remember looking at my wife and being like, that was absolutely brilliant, because that customer, that employee right there is our first interaction, is our first brand touch point. And that first brand touch point was positive. And let me tell you, that experience lasted throughout the whole time that we were there. And that whole time that we were there, we were kind of dissecting and looking around and looking not just from the employee interaction, but from a management interaction. You could see the hierarchy. You could see how the whole ecosystem worked together. And you could really see that innovation is at the core of this brand's value, at the core of their brand. core of their strategy, if you think about it. They're always looking at ways to involve the customer. They're always looking for ways to nurture them, give them incentives to come back, allow them the opportunity to be your biggest marketing asset or your spokesperson. That's amazing. You can't put a price on that. So again, brand of 1, brand of 5, brand of 10, brand of 100 or 1,000, these ideologies ring true. Instill a culture of innovation in your brand, and your social media as a tactic will benefit the most out of it. Your marketing in general will benefit from having a brand first approach. And I know a lot of the speakers here today are talking very tactical, right? They're telling you what to do and how to do it and showing you those tactics and showing you those strategies. And then I come over here and I talk about something a little bit out of left field, because that's how my thinking is, but that's what my clients hire me for. They hire me and they bring me in to help them kind of be this brand police. And I say enlist the brand police to ensure that every action that you do is a brand building moment and not a wasted opportunity. But you're not going to know that unless you have someone come in and allow you to look at it from the outside looking in. And that's what I do, guys. That's what I do every day, is I help entrepreneurs and CEOs and founders really take an outside-in look at their brand to see where the gaps are and how we can maximize not just their brand, that's the given. We're going to maximize your brand. We're going to make sure that you have a great culture. We're going to make sure your actions speak louder than words. What's more important is that you're not wasting money on marketing. The worst thing you can ever do is say, hey, you're a Facebook ads guy. I think I'm going to need to run Facebook ads. Facebook ads agency or whatever it is, they're going to say, yeah, you need a lot of it. Same thing if you go to an SEO agency. I think I need some SEO for my brand. They're going to say, you do. You need a lot of SEO, and here's why. Now, I agree. SEO is great. It's a long game. We're playing the long game with SEO. Create great content. How do you create great content to impact your SEO? Know who your audience is. How do we know who your audience is? Well, we need to do some brand work in the beginning. We need to know who we are first. We need to understand who our audience is, and we need to understand where we play so we can create that position or that value proposition that we're bringing to the market. Then from there, we could look at the shiny, bright new objects or those awesome tactics that allow us to market to our audience. So again, how do you live your brand purpose and make the most out of your marketing? Well, it comes very simply with a call to action. Guys, call me. Give me a ring. There's my telephone number, there's my email, and there is my Twitter. And allow me the opportunity to help you make great decisions. Allow me the opportunity to help your brand scale. Allow me the opportunity to take your brand to that next level and show you things that you never thought your brand could do. So many people have this, so many brands have this mantra that branding is expensive or that it's something to do later on. When in reality, set that concrete foundation now and allow that brand to take shape organically. Thanks, guys. Grazie.
Yo, that's a splendid explanations about the branding and social media transformation. Mr. Steven, can you copy paste your email ID, contact number in the chat box so that everyone can use it off?
I can, I absolutely will. I'm going to put my email and my URL over here. And honestly, if you want to shoot me a text, I'm always open for this as well. I'm an open book. You know, what it really comes down to is illuminating that marketing tactics are great. Marketing tactics move the needle. But without that concrete foundation and without that really solidified brand goal, brand culture, and creating a culture of innovation, you're going to be throwing money away. You're going to be wasting a ton of money. I've done it. I see clients do it all the time. They're wasting thousands of dollars on tactic this and Facebook ads this. Or how about growth hack that? Well, none of that matters unless you have a great brand.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Steven. And here we have those some of questions raised from audience side. Shall I? So, from Ms. Monica, why is brand building central to advertising? This is the first question raised by Ms. Monica.
Yeah, Monica, that's a great question. When you're going out and advertising, you need to approach the market with a message, with a call to action. You need to approach and get that ad to really sink in pretty quickly with your core audience. So how do we do that? Well, we know first who our core audience is. And by allowing ourselves to understand who our audience is, we can create messaging that's going to resonate with them. By knowing where they are in the sales funnel will allow us to do creative that really channels them down to a piece of conversion. So it's everything to advertising. Brand building is 100% essential to ensuring that your ROI on advertising is a positive one.
Okay, we have the second question from Kimberly. What is the quickest way to build brand online apart from Facebook, Twitter, Google AdWords?
Kimberly, again, another great question. We're talking very tactical here, and your brand is very strategic. Where is your brand vision? You really want to build a quick brand online. I would get the word quick out of there and realize that the greatest brands take time to build. They're built organically. And if you're looking for a get-rich-quick scheme or, a brand out of the box, understand that you're not going to really connect with your audience that way. You're not going to build great equity if you go down that route. You're going to spend a lot of money, have a lot of frustration, and you're essentially shoving a square into a circle and hoping that it fits. I say, let's reverse that and say, I want to build my brand. And once I build my brand, I want to look for ways to amplify it through digital marketing.
Okay, we have a next question from Jamie. Can we build brand only with influence marketing? Is that a good idea at first place?
Jamie, influencer marketing is it's a funny world. No. Well, it's a very long-winded answer. Influencer marketing is great to amplify your brand image, to get social proof around a product, to give off the perception that your brand is bigger than it is, or to have a quick little boost of engagement. But to think that you only want to build your brand through influencer marketing is kind of scary for me. It's scary because you don't own any of that. You don't own those brand assets. Influencer marketing says that I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for a shout out on Instagram, or I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for a link in a magazine or a follow link in a blog, which is great, but where's that going? Where's that trail end? What's that call to action? Is it just you want likes on a photo? That's a vanity metric. That's a waste of money. But where's the call to action? Is it going back to your website and are you selling them a product? And if you are, well, what's that message? And what does that strategy look like? What is it you're trying to communicate and how? So, I don't think it's a good idea in the first place. I think, understand your brand, understand your audience. And if your audience only cares about influencer marketing, because your audience is only for, 21-year-old, wannabe pop stars living in Florida or the U.S., then maybe that's a good tactic. But I guarantee you, your brand is worth more than that. So don't cheapen your brand by just thinking that you only have influencers. Your brand is worth more than that.
Thank you, sir. And again, we have Robert Michelle. How do I launch a new product or service line so that it fits with my existing brand?
I love this question, Robert. I'm actually dealing with this with a client of mine. They have an existing brand. They're introducing a new product line. And it's like, well, how do I fit this within my brand hierarchy? What's my architecture look like? Are you guys familiar with the term house of brand versus branded house? Right? House of brand says that, think about Procter & Gamble. It's a house of brands. You have all these little subset brands, Kleenex and Clorox and this brand and that brand. You don't really understand or know that they all fit within the same construct. It's not visible. But then you might have a branded house. So for example, a Scion by Toyota or whatever it is. You absolutely understand that one brand is owned or in conjunction with another brand. Perfect example of a branded house is, by Intel. Remember how Intel always had Intel inside, all those chips. It was an HP machine, but it was by Intel. So Robert, to answer your question is, first off, are your customers asking for this product or service line? Is this something that they have actually communicated to you? And if it is so, well then looking at your existing brand, how do you feel that your customers would attach to it more? Would it attach to it more if you made it very visible that this is a subset of my brand here, or is it different? I guess long story short, because it's a very difficult question to answer, in a short amount of time, it really all depends on that brand strategy and what your goals are. If your goal is in 5 years for an exit strategy and you want to build up the most brand equity, well, become a branded house. Right? Make sure that your brand name is front and center at all times and follow those service or products underneath. But if you're just kind of looking to make another revenue stream and you don't really care or don't think that your audience is going to care, again, it takes a lot of thought process about your audience, well, then go ahead and just push it out to the market. But Robert, please reach out to me. I'd love to have that conversation with you more in depth, because there's a couple different ways that we can go about this.
Okay, he asked for another questions also. What are the fundamental components I need for a successful brand?
First and foremost, we call it your brand DNA, right? So where does, if we look at a triangle, on top we have culture. That is everything that your brand is about. It's how you live your day to day. Supporting your culture or your mission and vision, your mission, right? What do you want the next 5 years to be like? And then your vision. What about 5 to 20 years? What does that long hightail goal look like? And then how can we fill up that mission, vision, and culture with all of our goals and with all of our initiatives? So in a real high level, that's sort of what it looks like, but it's all about building a concrete foundation and scaling up. I'll tell you though, a fundamental problem I see with a lot of people when they think about branding is everyone thinks branding is your logo. Everyone thinks branding is your color scheme. Everyone thinks branding is your creative. Everyone thinks branding is your tagline. Everyone thinks branding is your trademark. Everyone thinks branding is your name. Sure, it all makes it. But branding really is that gut feeling that your audience gets when they think about it or use your product or service. So the fundamental component, I would say, make sure you have a great brand strategy that addresses the next, from today to the next 5 years. Work backwards on those goals. Always address your goals and always have your goals front and center. And make sure that you are not being jaded by shiny, bright new objects.
Okay. How do I successfully spin off a company without losing market share or profit? The same question raised by Mr. Robert.
Robert, dude, you got to email me. How do you successfully spin off a company without losing market? I mean, what kind of company is it? Are you competing with yourself? Are you cannibalizing yourself? Is it completely an opposite company? Again, it comes back to brand architecture and brand hierarchy. There are ways to go about it. You use the term losing market share, which makes me think that it's a competing product that you're pushing into the market, perhaps. And then Robert, just to answer your next question, how do I increase brand recognition? Oh man, do everything that I said in the presentation, and then you'll definitely increase brand recognition. But no, on a serious side, Robert, you have my email. Please send me a note. I'd love to be able to answer these questions for you in a lot more detail.
Okay, thanks Mr. Steven Picanza for giving us such a notable information on brand innovation and social media transformation. Thanks for your time and your in your busy schedule for the GDMS 2. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys.